Hello, welcome to our fourth lesson. In this lesson, we are going to look at minimum vertical length of a plane mirror. We shall also look at the applications of reflection in plane mirrors, and lastly, we shall look at the comparison of plane mirrors and reflecting prisms. So let us begin by looking at the minimum vertical length of a plane mirror. So here we want to see what will be the size or the length of the minimum length of the plane mirror that an object can be seen completely or a person can see himself completely. So let us begin by looking at this example to understand that. So we have a man 2 meters tall whose eye level is 1.84 meters above the ground looks at his image in a vertical mirror. What must be the minimum vertical length of the mirror so that the man can see the whole of himself completely in the mirror? Now let us look at the diagrammatic interpretation of that question. So we have this man who is 2 meters tall, and that is SC, and his eye level is 1.84 meters above the ground. So it implies that this B is the eye level. So a ray from the top of the head, that is at A, is going to be reflected at the top or at the top of this plane mirror and is going to be reflected towards his eye at B. And then it implies that the angle I is equal to the angle R. So if this angle I is equal to the angle R, it implies that the distance AQ is equal to the distance QB. So if I want to get the distance BQ, is going to be a half of the distance BA, which is a half of 0.16. And half of 0.16 gives us 0.08 meters. Also, another ray from the foot to the lower part of the mirror is reflected towards the eye at B, and so the angle I is equal to the angle R, which implies that the distance BP is equal to the distance PC, and so if I want to get the distance BP is going to be a half of BC, which is a half of 1.84, and half of 1.84 gives you 0.92 meters. Now, if I want to get the length of this plane mirror, is going to be given by the distance QP, which is going to be QB plus BP, which is going to be 0.08 plus 0.92 meters. And if we add the two, we shall get 1 meter, which implies that the minimum vertical length of the plane mirror for the man to see the whole of himself is going to be 1 meter, which is a half of the 2 meters. So in conclusion, we shall say that the minimum vertical length required to see an object completely is always going to be a half of the height of that object. Let us also continue and look at the applications of reflection in plane mirrors. The first application here we shall look into is it is used in periscopes. It is used in kaleidoscopes. It is used in supermarkets to monitor the activities of customers. It is used in saloons and also in dressing rooms to see oneself. It is also used in small vehicles by drivers to see the activities of the passengers aboard. And also, lastly, it is used in bicycles to see behind the traffic behind. Lastly, I want us to, before I look at the last part, I want us to make this note that the disadvantage of using this plane mirror as reflectors of light in optical instruments can always be overcome by using the reflecting prisms. So let us look at the comparison of plane mirrors and reflecting prism. The first comparison here, we're going to look at, unlike these prisms, plane mirrors form multiple images. Plane mirrors form multiple images. And also another comparison is that the silvering in plane mirrors always wears out. The silvering in plane mirrors wears out, while there is actually no silvering in prisms. There's no need for silvering in prisms. And then lastly, unlike plane mirrors, we see that these reflecting prisms these reflecting prisms don't suffer any loss of brightness. They don't suffer loss of brightness, while for the plane mirrors we see that they suffer loss of brightness, as we saw earlier on. There's loss of brightness because of the absorption at different surfaces. There's absorption at different surfaces, so that means that there's going to be a loss of brightness at each of the surface. And finally, the final image is always less bright. Yeah. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next lesson.